and welcome to the BPD Bunch Brunch, where we get together with our favorite brunchy beverages to catch up, play games, and talk about all things BPD. I'm your host, Xannie, and today I am here with Georgette, Céline, Andrea, and Solène. Where in the world is everyone coming from, and what is your brunchy beverage for today?
I'm coming from London and I have coffee.
London as well, just samosas today.
I'm coming from San Antonio, Texas. I've got iced coffee.
And I'm coming from New Jersey and I have a seltzer. So exciting.
I'm from New Mexico, and unlike normal, where I usually have coffee, I have tea. I have like a Tower of London blend. So today we are going to do a Q&A. We collected a bunch of different questions from our audience. Here's one that is kind of fun. Who are some fictional characters you see yourself in?
I've got an answer to that straight away. So
Go for it.
I see myself in Triss from Divergent because she is a mix of lots of different types of traits and doesn't fit into a category. So when I watched the film, I hadn't read the book, I related so hard and I ended up getting the tattoo that she has on her collarbone on my ribs.
This is a tough question. But if I could be somebody from a fictional story, I would probably want to be Sherlock Holmes, but I'd most likely end up being Watson.
I love that.
Why would you end up being Watson?
Because Sherlock Holmes is super smart. He's supernaturally smart, right? Watson gets to be there on all the adventures, but he's not doing the brain heavy lifting. So
I think younger me, I really relate to Clementine from Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
I thought about saying that one, Andrea.
I love her. I also really relate to Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. Always just, wanting to go somewhere different when you're already exactly where you belong.
Ooh, that's deep.
Just dive right in.
This is so hard. Have you seen the movie Inside Out?
Yes.
Yes, so the little girl, and especially in her head, there's the sadness character. Maybe it's gonna make me sound very sad, but I really love her so much. She cries sideways. I mean, that is so cute. And then she flops on the side. I don't know, I just really identify with her.
What about you, Xannie?
Rebecca Bunch from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I feel like she is me in TV form in the sense that I also have done a lot of really big behaviors that were problematic, but also I'm just sort of a performer at heart, and those of you who know me well sometimes will get me singing my life updates to you. Andrea gets these a lot. She has BPD, canonically, that's a big part of the show. So I feel like I see myself in her a lot. Okay, so now a question for Solène, and it is, what place has had the most unique or interesting food?
China. Maybe for context, so I've lived in 6 countries and I've traveled to, I think it's now 58, so almost 60. I lived in China for 2 years in Shanghai, and I think before going to China, I didn't like Chinese food, and I'm sorry for our Chinese watchers. I changed my mind, don't worry. But before going to China, I knew Chinese food from a European perspective, especially a French perspective, and we don't have proper Chinese food, let me tell you that. As soon as I arrived in China, I realized China has so much variety, so many different foods. In every region has its own specialties, and it's just amazing. From extremely good, the best dumplings I've ever had in my whole entire life. Oh, so good. You can't stop eating them, and then you feel like a dumpling yourself. So from that to the day that I thought I was ordering chicken, but ended up ordering chicken feet. I don't eat meat anymore.
What is chicken feet like? How do you even eat it?
I didn't. I just like, it's just, and we had no more money. So we just had like this plate of potatoes without anything else we could, and his feet were looking at us and we're like, oh God. So yeah, I think China from a food perspective, from like the most incredible delicious to some of the most like difficult for a foreigner to kind of adapt to, all the nuances.
I've actually made chicken feet before. I think I was reading. Yeah, I was reading online and I found a recipe and I was like, I'm gonna try that. So I bought chicken feet and I tried it. I did not eat them though. My ex-husband ate them. He said they were pretty good. So yeah, I only made him the once.
Is that why he's your ex-husband?
Yeah, that might be.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
That was wide open, Céline.
That was good storytelling. I like that.
All right, so the next question is for Andrea. So you said in your little online card that you like the human ability to create. So are you creative? And if so, what is your favorite creative hobby?
I do find myself to be creative. I like to write poems. I dabble in watercolor.
She's really good at it.
You're amazing.
Thank you. But counter cross stitching would be my favorite, and I think it's because it's so tiny and tedious. So when it's done, it's like, haha, it's finished. I do have one in the other room if you want me to run and get it really quick, so it's quite impressive. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm excited. There he is.
You cross-stitched that?
So, has anybody seen Life Aquatic?
Yes.
Okay, that's what this is from.
I love Wes Anderson.
Me too. Yeah. So, yeah. Me and my daughter's
The hats.
little slogan is, "This is an adventure." And it's from Winnie the Pooh also, but he says it in this movie. I tried to get this done for her before she took her first road trip when she was 18. So it's her little adventure gift that I made for her. And I swear it's what gave me bad posture, because it took so long to do. And I had to do it in secret. But yeah, so
That's so sweet.
it's Bill Murray from Life Aquatic.
I love it.
Now a question for the group. Things take longer for me to complete than other people. How can I have compassion for myself?
When I was trying to learn to love myself, because I think that you sort of have to start with that to have compassion. What was really helpful for me was that I just went on YouTube and I got positive affirmations, but I had a very hard time with them because you're repeating to yourself, like, I am these things. And at the time, I didn't feel like I was any of those things. And a girlfriend of mine said, what if you try to just say, what if? So I would listen to the positive affirmations and it would say like, I am kind, or I am a good person. And I would say, what if I am this? What if? So when I was repeating it to myself, I was just saying the what ifs. And I stayed in that space for a while. But I found it to be really helpful because after a while, the what if kind of turned into like a realization that I actually was.
For me, I have had to use opposite action in order to flip self-harm into self-care and criticizing myself into self-soothing. And the more I just challenged myself when I felt critical of myself or wanting to hurt myself in either a physical or an emotional way, I just say, no, I'm going to do something different. You got to practice. And the more you do it, the more you use that opposite action, even if it feels uncomfortable and that you don't deserve it, the more you do it, the more it will become a habit as your self-worth and self-esteem improves. And now it's become easy for me, actually. And now I tell other people to do it when they get down on themselves. I'm like, go do something nice for yourself.
I love that.
I actually still have to seek the assistance of others by letting them know, like, I don't feel like I'm a very bright person, and I need that validation from someone that's close to me to let me know, like, look at all the things that you've done. Look at how far you've come. You can do this. I think just talking to people about my struggles and them voicing the way they do things, or even just, like I said, about validation, letting me know how far I have come. That's where I'm still at. I still need the assistance of others. I'm not on my own just yet, but one day I'll get there.
I was going back to the statements because I think there are two parts in there. The first part is slower than others, and there's a judgment in there. There's a comparison in there. So I think the first step, like for me, I'm very judgmental on myself. I'm very harsh on myself, and this ability to be more compassionate is still something I'm working on. So I just want to say, maybe before I get into it, that it's very easy for me to say something, and actually it's very hard to implement. It's one of these things that is simple but not easy. And I think first thing is noticing. Before doing anything about it, is noticing that, okay, I think I'm slower than other people. That's a judgment. Where is that judgment coming from? Am I comparing myself to their version on social media, or am I actually aware of how fast others are? Like, where is, that comparison coming from? Is it a fair comparison? As long as it's your pace, and as long as you're doing and living the life that, you want, then I think, that's amazing in itself.
And the other thing I would add is it's like, just because somebody, like, the standard maybe to do something at a faster pace than you're doing it might not actually mean that it's better, because I do think that sometimes when you're going really fast, there are things that you miss. So there is something to be said for going at a different pace. Everything affects everything else, right? Like, the pace at which you accomplish things changes how you interpret what's happening. So it could be that, maybe this is one way to reframe it. It's that, like, if things are taking longer for you, maybe that means you're able to take in information in a different way than other people could. And that also might mean that you come out of it with a different perspective that might really add something to the conversation.
Yeah. Slow and steady wins the race, no? The tortoise that ends up finishing before the hare. You're absolutely right, Xannie. And especially when you think about, like, working in a team or being in a conversation with people, and if you're more reflective, often I love the silent person that comes with the amazing comment that you've never thought about before, and you're like, oh, this was amazing, So could be your strength.
The next question is for Georgette.
Oh boy.
How is it being a parent with BPD?
Well, my experience of it is rough. I mean, I was diagnosed late in life, so I'd already had all 4 of my children. And I think after I was diagnosed and aware of it, it really helped me see my behaviors, and it gave me a ton of motivation to change and to tackle this every day. Being a parent with BPD, I think in some ways it makes me a good parent because I have so much love to give my children. But in other ways, it can be really, I'm sure I was a frightening parent when my BPD was not recognized or treated, because my moods could go up or down. I could be totally loving and then totally lose it. And that doesn't give your children a real sense of stability or safety. So that's really been something that throughout the course of my treatment for this, I've really focused on how can I be there for my kids and be a source of safety for them, so that I can channel my empathy and my love into a positive thing for my children. And also, how can I make up for my past mistakes? How do I acknowledge, I need to acknowledge the harm that I've caused them, and really use that as a personal motivation to get better and be better and do better, so that I can be there for my kids and give them what they need. So it definitely, and then just the functional, like, day-to-day stuff, I noticed that after I was diagnosed, I could look back and I saw that being overwhelmed, like, I would get really overwhelmed when everybody was like, mom, 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 and there was noise and there was this and there was that. And I would get super overwhelmed, and I felt like I was staying calm. And then I would, like, blow up because I just hit that point where I couldn't handle it anymore. And one of the things that I learned in recovery was it's important to recognize when you're starting to escalate up so that you can step away and take a minute. And I never wanted to allow myself to do that because it's hard to break away. You just want to like power through. But now I definitely recognize like, okay, if I feel like I'm getting too far into, you know, like in DBT talk, emotion minds, it's okay for me to step away. And I tell my kids, you know what, I need to take a break for a minute. I'm really overwhelmed with what's going on. Or even tell them like, that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked me that, but I need some time to answer it. I can't give you that answer right now. So it's been quite an experience parenting with BPD.
The next one is for Céline, and it is, tell me all about your project, Borderline UK. It's not really a question.
Ooh.
It's a demand. It's a demand. You got a demand.
Started it because I was diagnosed in 2016. I was 23 or 24, and I wasn't given any information on what it was. And I was diagnosed with emotionally unstable personality disorder, because that's what we tend to call it, or our psychiatrists tend to call it in the UK. So I didn't actually know it was the same as BP for months, and the only way I found out was doing my own internet research. But a lot of the content was American focused, and we didn't have much here, so I kept thinking about that, and my very supportive boyfriend at the time, when I was very unwell, suggested that I create a space for that, to bring information and awareness into the UK. And I was very much like, no, I'm not qualified to do that. I've only just been diagnosed. I'm only just finding out, you know, what it is. I'm a bit disappointed in the health system for not giving me more information, because it's a big diagnosis to just give someone and then just send them away.
Yeah.
And I found it so hard to communicate it to family and friends at the time, because I had no way of explaining what it was. I did end up listening to my boyfriend at the time and did create the page on Instagram, and it's been a bit of a journey with me. Although I very much didn't want it to be a page about me, I wanted it to be a recovery focused page. Borderline UK was my way to connect other people like me, to connect me to other people like me, to connect other people like them, and to just be a place of awareness, information, something that people who are getting diagnosed in the UK could search a hashtag and find quite quickly and get a huge amount of information. That was the desire. As it turned out, it reached a lot more than just the UK. It's grown and it's still growing. So that's really what it is. And I have a day job. I'm a lawyer, so I don't give as much time and attention to it as I would like because of my other day job. I hope that answers the question.
Borderline UK is how I found out about this show. So
Oh, really?
Full circle. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. I love some of the other people in the bunch have approached me and been like, I'm such a fan of your page. And I was like, I feel famous.
So the next question is for the group. Are you ever in situations where you feel like you're not BPD enough? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Oh
yeah. Oh yeah.
No.
Okay. No.
Not BPD enough.
I would say I feel it sometimes running BPD, running Borderline UK, because I started it the year I was diagnosed and continued to run it throughout being really ill. And now I'm functionally recovered. I question whether I qualify enough to run the page still. So that's kind of how I relate to that.
I guess I could see that. At first I was like, how do you... No, I don't want BPD at all. But I understand now. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of a band. Like when you first get started listening to a band when they first start out and then they start to progress and then fans are like, either they're with it and they're along for the ride, or you've got the other fans that are like, you've changed. Oh, this band sucks now.
Don't say that.
But you've got the followers that are growing with you.
Those
You know
are
what
the
I
people you
mean?
want.
Those are the people that you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
I never felt like I wasn't BPD enough, but I definitely felt like I didn't have enough trauma that other people would think it was okay that I had the diagnosis.
Yeah,
I can identify with that.
It's funny though, the more I talk about it, the more I realize that like a lot of other people have actually had very similar experiences where there was no like big single trauma. It was more just like they didn't quite fit into the space, and because they didn't quite fit into the space, they weren't able to figure out how to effectively live in that space, and it just compounded over many, 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 many years to become something extremely challenging to manage. But like when I was first sort of coming into all of this, it was like, can I even tell people that like my parents are still together and I've basically had all my needs met and no one ever called me any of these names? Like if I don't come out here saying like my parents beat me, like is anyone gonna take me seriously?
I can relate to that a lot, and I think one thing that changed my view on that was, you know, and this may be gonna sound a bit left field, but you know, torture, right? There's obviously the big tools, like big T trauma, right? But then one aspect, one way that you probably have to get this, one way that you can torture people is by dropping a drop of water on their foreheads constantly and consistently, and that becomes unbearable, just unbearable. And that made me realize that is small T trauma. That is consistent, constant invalidation in the environment, you know? And that made me realize, okay. Maybe that was kind of, you know, I got the drop of water. I didn't get the big tools, but it still hurts, damn it. Anyway.
That's a really good way of thinking about it. Because Xannie, I had the same experience. I can't say that my family is super functional, but like I wasn't starved, I wasn't beaten, I wasn't, you know, I didn't have any of these like big, huge traumas, but it's the little bits over time. And when you were talking, I was thinking about, you know, sometimes you're just a bad fit. Sometimes things are just a bad fit. And in some ways, I think I was a little bit of a bad fit for the family that I was born into.
I have felt like I wasn't BPD enough when I first got diagnosed. When I was younger, one of my closest friends was diagnosed with BPD, and her manifestation of BPD was a lot more extreme. You know, she was hospitalized. I mean, I, you know, went through it with her and was a witness to the self-harm and all these different, sorry, I'm going to go emotional. I normally don't talk much about this part. And so I wasn't diagnosed until another half of life later. I was diagnosed at 32. She was diagnosed at 14. And I think when I was diagnosed, you know, I look back and I was like, hey, but I have a job. Not that hasn't, you know, now I realize that has nothing to do with anything. But, you know, in my mind, it was like, but I'm not in hospital, but I'm not, you know, doing self-harm in the way that she was doing it, because it was that comparing to someone who had it. And same thing, she had, you know, the trauma was big T trauma. And I felt like I don't deserve to have a diagnosis and treatment. And so, yeah, the beginning of the journey was really difficult to, I guess, just go with like, yeah, no, I have BPD. I meet all these criteria. So let's just get on with it. Accepting that, yeah.
I relate to that subject of having a job and never having been an inpatient. So that comparison point is really real. I look at people who are like, you can't have BPD if you can hold down a full-time job. And I'm like,
well, that's so not true.
Yeah.
No.
It's hard. It's hard, but I do it.
It's hard, yes. It's not one of these simple, easy. It's like legit hard, this one. But it's possible.
I know whenever Xannie first started putting out everybody's introduction videos, I was like, everybody's got like these great families. I'm embarrassed because I didn't have like that like footprint, you know, like I didn't have like a terrible family. I had, you know, I came from divorced parents. So, you know, here I am like watching these stories and I'm like, oh my God, like these people have like these great lives and these like parents and like, you know, these like lovely stories. And I'm just like, my parents are divorced. I was alone, you know? And so, I mean, I don't know if I didn't feel BPD enough. I think I was more kind of, I felt like a little bit ashamed and like that I didn't have more of a nice story to tell. But on the other end of what you were saying, Céline, about like the posting, I think when I first started like looking at the mental health stuff online, I was also kind of seeing the more darker side, like the more like relatable things like, oh, like I used to feel this way. And they wrote it so beautifully. But now I'm looking for like I want to heal. Like, let me look for all the BPD healing stuff, you know? Like, I don't want to talk about the BPD sad stuff. I mean, it's there, and whatever it is that's getting that person through it, like that's probably those people that are getting started. But eventually you're going to want to heal through it, you know? And so that's where I'm at too. So I totally get it.
I feel like it's a process. It's a process, and what I'm hearing from just about everybody is something we heard in one of the last questions is that comparison. And I feel like that's the thief of, what is it saying? It's the thief of joy.
Comparison, compassion. It was that question. It's really echoing that. Yeah, I feel like I want to give so much compassion in this space because, hearing all these comparisons, like in the end, all our lives are different.
Well, that's it. We're out of time. So, I will just say, thank you everyone so much for watching and hanging out with us, answering questions. Hopefully you got a little nugget of information to take with you on your journey. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you do not miss a single episode. Next week we will be back for another game. We have yet to decide what it is, but believe me, it will be fun. So we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
The end.